I want to show you guys something more to do to work on the shoulder, because a lot of reflexology charts, if you're just looking at them like this is a pretty standard chart, a lot of them look like this. They have shapes and blobs and they're associated with labels. So you just kind of have to remember where the shape of something is and where the shoulder reflex is, for example, which is the outside of each foot and on the ball of the foot. Okay, so like maybe under the pinky toe, which in reflexology we'd call zone 5. But what I want you to have a larger understanding of is the whole shoulder region and why you might work one area over another area, why you might choose something versus something else. So if you look at this skeleton, we can see that from the back, we have the shoulder blade, or the scapula, and from the shoulder blade, here's the joint. Here's where the humerus or the arm bone connects with the scapula. And if we're looking at this skeleton from the center line of the body, which in reflexology terms would be zone 1, each section, each half of the body gets counted from 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 as zones. Those repeat themselves in the reflexes. Zone 1 is the central body, or the big toe and everything underneath it, and then we count out 2, 3, 4, and 5 for zone 5. Okay, so the shoulder joint itself, you can see this is the outermost edge of the body on both sides. If you consider zone 5, that's why the shoulder joint reflex is in zone 5 on both these areas in the chart. Here's the bigger picture though. Come on over here, I have an assistant, my lovely assistant Ariana. What I want you guys to see is that from the back, if I was to actually look at the structure of these shoulder blades and the rib cage and where the spinal column lands. The spinal column is central, so that's in zone 1. That's going to be half on the right foot and half on the left foot. And if the spinal column is zone 1, then the shoulder joint is in zone 5 all the way out to the edge. But what about the rest of the story that happens across the back of the rib cage, where if Ariana is rowing, so just pretend you're rowing for a second, and the shoulder blades come back, these muscles all on either side really tighten up, and the shoulder blade wing sticks out a little bit. But then if Ariana was to hug somebody, these shoulder blades will float away from the spine. Okay, so they're meant to kind of glide across the rib cage. Either they're coming towards zone 1 or they're moving away from zone 1 as we either do this kind of movement or this kind of movement. Okay, so what I want to look at is not just the shoulder joint. You wouldn't go to a massage therapist with a shoulder problem and they would just sit there and do massage therapy like this for 45 minutes to an hour on the actual joint. We want to make sure this whole structure is taken care of. So what that means is that we want to consider the shoulder as an area, region, that encompasses from the actual joint itself all the way across where the whole scapula crosses, and the route that the scapula could take as it's floating across the back of the rib cage. And then the muscles between the shoulder blades are between zones 1 and 2. So if someone's a hairdresser, if they're a dentist, if they're working over somebody, if they're a reflexologist for that matter, and their arms are out in front of them a lot of the time, these muscles can become quite tight, burny. They could actually become also taut, which means a little bit too stretched. So in order to address this, you would use different reflex area than just this. Okay, you can see how the zones are totally different. So I'll let you step out again, and I'm going to show you on a reflex foot. We're going to basically take this reflex model from the right side and turn it into what you can do to work the reflex to the whole shoulder region. The shoulder joint itself, zone 5, there's the ball of the foot. So joint here, scapula goes across, and it's not really just like stapled in place, right? So think of the scapula like it can move back and forth across the rib cage. This will move back and forth. And then the muscles between the shoulder blade and the spine are all in here. So that'd be like your rhomboids, mid-traps. So if someone's got fatigued or tired muscles or soreness between the two shoulder blades, you're working really more in zone 1 than just skipping out to zone 5 and working the joint itself. That means this entire ball opens up to be worked for anything shoulder related, still favoring right to right client's right side on the right foot, left side on their left foot as reflexes. But it's not just going to be the affected side that you work, because if one side is injured, you're favoring the other one to carry groceries or your purse or whatever. So even if one side's affected, work them both, and work them both across all zones.